The Twisted Tale of John Wayne Gacy, Killer Clown. In the bustling streets of Chicago's Newtown neighborhood, 27-year-old Jeff Ringel took a casual stroll on May 22, 1978. He had just returned from a lengthy winter vacation in sunny Florida. Without warning, a black Oldsmobile pulled up sharply beside Ringel. The driver, a burly man wearing a rumpled shirt, poked his head out and complimented Ringel's sexy suntan. He invited Ringel to join him for a drink and chat at a local bar. Eager for distraction from the dreary post-vacation chill, Ringel readily accepted the offer from this gregarious stranger. But he had no idea that in mere moments, his casual ride would spiral into a vicious assault that nearly took his life. The man behind the wheel was John Wayne Gacy, who had come to be known as the notorious Killer Clown. His heinous string of murders rocked the nation as one of America's most shocking serial killing sprees. Gacy's horrendous crimes and sinister double life stunned all who thought they knew him. But long before Gacy became a household name for evil, his path was forged by childhood trauma, warped sexuality, and a hunger for power over others. The seeds of a killer John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. He was the middle child of 3 children born to John Stanley Gacy and Marion Elaine Robinson. The Gacys were a working-class Catholic family of Polish and Danish heritage. As a teen, Gacy took odd jobs at neighborhood stores and the local mortuary to help the family make ends meet. But Gacy's childhood was far from idyllic. At age 11, he suffered a traumatic head injury when a swing hit him at school. The powerful impact formed a blood clot in his brain that caused blackouts, seizures, and headaches for years before doctors discovered and surgically removed it at age 16. Gacy's father was an abusive alcoholic who repeatedly belittled him as a worthless sissy and mama's boy. John Stanley Gacy could not accept that his overweight, unathletic son preferred cooking and gardening to sports. He frequently unleashed drunken tirades and whippings on the boy in the family basement. Gacy's mother and sisters silently endured the same violent abuse. According to Gacy, his father had PTSD from military service in Wee that warped his mind. The unstable elder Gacy would regularly lock himself in the basement for hours, ranting nonsensically in different voices like someone with multiple personalities. Though brutalized by his father, Gacy strove to earn his approval. The boy yearned for paternal recognition and affection that never came. His longing turned to sorrow when his father suddenly died from cirrhosis of the liver when Gacy was 18. The funeral was the only time Gacy ever recalled his father telling him he loved him. Throughout his tortured childhood, Gacy secretly grappled with attraction to males. In his teens, he regularly saw doctors for heart palpitations and migraines, which he attributed to stress over his sexuality. Alienated and ashamed, Gacy dropped out of high school. At age 20, he left home for Las Vegas. There he worked menial jobs and lived in a motel room while completing high school. After 3 years of scraping by, Gacy had saved enough to return to Chicago in 1964. Back with his family, he resolved to build a successful life. The charismatic businessman Rhesus Gacy realized that education was the pathway to success. He enrolled in a local business college and earned an associate's degree in business management. His sharp financial mind and tireless work ethic were quickly recognized in the food service industry. By his mid-20s, Gacy ascended to manage multiple KFC franchises in Waterloo, Iowa. In Waterloo, Gacy dove into the local JC's Civic Club, volunteering for charitable causes. His gregarious nature and networking skills propelled him into the upper ranks of the JC's and other Waterloo organizations. Gacy served as vice president of the local chapter of the Holy Name Society, a Catholic men's group. In 1964, Gacy married Marlon Myers, the daughter of a prosperous Iowa fast food chain owner. After the wedding, Gacy managed one of his new father-in-law's Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurants. The couple relocated into a 2-story brick home in Waterloo and started a family, having 2 children in 1965 and 1967. To all appearances, Gacy lived the American dream as a thriving young family man and businessman. But behind his friendly smile and easygoing laugh, depraved desires smoldered within. The first hint of the monster within. In August 1967, Gacy committed his first known sexual assault on a teenage boy. The unfortunate victim was Donald Voorhees, the 15-year-old son of a business associate. Gacy lured the boy to his house on the false pretense of showing him pornographic films. Gacy plied Voorhees with alcohol, intimidated him with a knife, and forced the teen to perform oral sex on him. In the months after, several other young males in Waterloo accused Gacy of similar sexual coercion and abuse. Disturbing rumors swirled about Gacy making aggressive sexual advances on young male employees of local businesses. But the esteemed JC and family man angrily denied the gossip, calling it a baseless smear campaign by envious business competitors. The facade soon cracked when Donald Voorhees bravely came forward to testify against his abuser in May 1968. Gacy was swiftly indicted on a sodomy charge. The model citizen of Waterloo was exposed as a predatory sex offender. Caging the beast at 26 years old, Gacy entered the state prison in Anamosa for the first time. The conviction shattered his idyllic American dream life. His wife divorced him, and he never again saw his 2 young children. Behind bars, Gacy adjusted to the Spartan life of a convict. He took a prison kitchen job and completed his high school education, joining the inmate JCs. After serving just 18 months, Gacy impressed the parole board. As a model prisoner who expressed regret and was ready to re-enter society, a reformed man. The return to normal life back in Chicago in the summer of 1970, Gacy moved in with his mother and took a job as a short-order cook. After saving some money, he left the nest of his childhood home and started his own construction company, PDM Contractors. Gacy had worked in construction during his wayward youth and saw opportunity in Chicago's building boom. In 1972, Gacy remarried to a divorce named Carol Hoff, who managed multiple properties. The couple settled into a ranch-style house at 8213 West Summerdale Avenue in an unincorporated area of Norwood Park Township. Known for his outsized personality, Gacy quickly ingratiated himself with his new neighbors in the lower middle-class neighborhood. To all observers, Gacy doggedly pursued the American dream a second time. He joined the local Moose Lodge and became active in Democratic Party ward politics, eager to rebuild his reputation. But privately, Gacy developed a growing appetite for violent sexual perversion. Murder in the crawlspace Gacy later marked January 1972 as the time he committed his first murder. The victim was 16-year-old Timothy McCoy, a homeless runaway lured to Gacy's house under the guise of offering him work. In a crazed state, Gacy repeatedly stabbed the youth in the chest with a kitchen knife, believing McCoy meant to attack and kill him. After realizing the frightened boy's innocent intentions, intense new urges to rape and kill flooded Gacy's mind. He felt transformed by the experience of extinguishing a life. Gacy perfected his tactics for snaring random young male victims. He outfitted his simple ranch home like a huntsman's lair, installing hooks. On the ceiling and a sliding panel beneath his kitchen counter, to hide and restrain victims. Gacy's drive to rape and slaughter young men and boys became insatiable. For added thrills, he sometimes donned a clown costume and introduced himself to unsuspecting prey as Pogo the Clown. This disarming trick let Gacy lure the vulnerable into his home more easily. Other times, Gacy baited victims by offering construction work, promising to show them porn, or simply being friendly to hitchhikers he picked up. Once alone with them inside his house, escape was impossible. In his kitchen or bedroom, Gacy would trick the boys into donning handcuffs as part of a magic act, then violently assault them. After the brutal rapes, Gacy finished off victims in whatever way. His cruel whims dictated be suffocation, strangulation, or simply stabbing them to death. He buried most of the dead teenagers and young men in graves dug beneath his home's crawlspace. By 1975, the stench of rotting corpses buried in the dank crawlspace gradually began to permeate Gacy's house. Neighbors complained frequently about the rank, sweet odor that Gacy blamed on sewer issues or dead mice trapped under the house. To buy time, he began disposing some bodies off his property in the Des Plaines River or scattered in rural forest preserves. But Gacy was ravenous to continue his grisly killing spree. He began prowling the freeways and bus stations of Cook County, paying male prostitutes or picking up teenage runaways and hitchhikers who would not be missed. The investigation begins for years. Police were mystified by the rash of young men and boys vanishing in Chicago's northwest suburbs from 1975 to 1978. But the biggest break came on December 11, 1978, when 15-year-old Robert Piest went missing after meeting contractor John Gacy about a holiday job. When questioned about the boy's disappearance, the calculating Gacy claimed he sent Piest to a pharmacy after their meeting and never saw him again. But a receipt showed Gacy was the last person to talk with Piest. And the teen's relentless mother and sister told police that Gacy made suspicious sexual advances toward the boy before he vanished. On December 13th, investigators obtained a warrant to search Gacy's home and vehicles. There they found handcuffs, gay pornography, bags of lime, and Criticalia class ring belonging to the missing Robert Piest. After days of intense questioning, Gacy finally cracked and confessed to murdering over 24 young males. Police swiftly obtained a second warrant to excavate beneath his home at 8213 Summerdale Avenue. The investigation was headed up by experienced Cook County evidence technicians along with forensic anthropologist Clyde Snow. A stomach-churning scene. In the fetid darkness of Gacy's crawlspace, Snow and investigators uncovered a macabre graveyard. 29 dead boys and young men were buried in shallow graves beneath Gacy's home, all in varying states of decomposition. Some victims were found with their own underwear still stuffed in their throats, a tactic Gacy used to stifle their screams during assaults. Others were covered in quicklime, which he spread to mask the stench of rotting flesh. Several of the dead were found stacked on top of each other in the cramped 24-inch high space. Based on the haphazard burial jobs, detectives deduced Gacy only planned to temporarily store some corpses in the crawlspace before eventually scattering them elsewhere. As the body count climbed, an emotionless Gacy took pride in showing police where to dig for his victims' remains. He even drew investigators detailed maps to help locate burial sites and confirm his grotesque work. When asked what drove his killings, Gacy callously replied, it was simply his thing that he did for enjoyment. The clown-obsessed killer showed zero remorse for snuffing out dozens of lives to gratify his deviant desires. Police were still skeptical Gacy had revealed all his murderous secrets. Gacy's false facade crumbles for years. Gacy had constructed an elaborate facade to conceal his demons. Detectives were shocked to find the sadistic torture chamber buried beneath the home of such a distinguished local citizen. But several startling clues from Gacy's past suddenly made sense. There was the suspicious drowning of a teenage employee in an Iowa river when Gacy managed restaurants there. Initially ruled accidental, the drowning took on sinister new meaning. Gacy's aborted political ambitions were derailed by rumors of his taste for young men and boys. Had he craved positions of greater power and trust to help snare victims and evade detection? The cookie-cutter house, devoted wife, and upstanding persona had all been props in Gacy's twisted play. He merely acted out the role of good citizen and family man as a cover for his crippled inner world. Psychological analysis of the killer after his arrest. Gacy willingly spent over 250 hours with police psychologists dissecting the motives for his depraved crimes. He freely admitted he was bisexual, but loathed this aspect of himself. According to Gacy, his ultra-macho father and strict Catholic upbringing filled him with intense self-hatred about his homosexuality that likely stoked his savage killings. Gacy claimed he felt like two people, a Jekyll and Hyde. His outer world was conventional while his secret self acted out dark fantasies of rape, torture, and playing God with victims' lives. He insisted that his busy schedule running a company made impersonal encounters with hustlers easier than dating women. But in truth, Gacy desperately wanted loving relationships and felt isolated by his inability to control his warped desires. The origins of the killer clown person detectives also sought clues behind the nightmarish clown get-up Gacy adopted to act out his most bestial assaults. They were surprised to learn he had long been fascinated by clowns. Since his early teens, Gacy had taught himself magic tricks and learned to paint haunting clown portraits that prefigured his later obsession. While in prison the first time, he entertained fellow inmates as a clown named Patches. But what inner demons drove Gacy to unleash his murderous Mr. Hyde dressed in grease paint? Analysts said the clown costume allowed Gacy to appear harmless like the jovial characters he imitated. This was the sinister trap he laid for victims. Also, donning the makeup let Gacy distance himself emotionally from his hideous crimes. He could pretend the persona of Pogo committed the rapes and killings, not himself. For Gacy, the costume marked his surrender to the remorseless killer within. The sadistic painted grin was the leer of that inner demon finally unleashed. Justice for the dead in February 1980, Gacy finally went to trial with the eyes of the nation fixed on him. He actively assisted his attorneys who pushed an insanity defense. But prosecutors insisted Gacy knew exactly what he was doing and took great pleasure in it. Over 2 harrowing weeks, gruesome evidence of Gacy's depravity was laid bare. Police experts testified on the intricate torture board the killer engineered to abuse victims. Coroner workers told of the stench as they extracted body after body from the dank crawlspace. Dental and pathology experts detailed how they pieced together the victims' fractured skeletons to prove Gacy's guilt. On March 12, 1980, after just 2 hours of jury deliberation, Gacy was found guilty of 33 counts of murder. The following day, he was sentenced to death by lethal injection. Gacy was convicted of more murders than any known American serial killer to that point, but investigators believe his victim count could have exceeded 40. 6 additional suspected Gacy victims were too decomposed to ever be conclusively identified. The House of Horrors was demolished and the nightmare appeared over. But its impact reverberated across society. Gacy had forever shattered the illusion that monsters always look frightening. Sometimes they can masquerade in plain sight as the pleasant man next door. Aftermath. In the years awaiting execution, Gacy took up painting in prison, churning out hundreds of clown images in his signature chaotic style. He charged $200 apiece for them, earning over $1,000 from collectors of murderabilia. The Anguish artwork suggests Gacy still clung to his clown persona like a security blanket against reality. On May 10, 1994, Gacy was executed by lethal injection at Stateville Prison, ending his life at age 52. His notorious legacy forever changed how America viewed clowns. Their once cheery image was replaced with unease and horror after the diabolical killer clown Gacy. Though decades have passed, the pain Gacy inflicted still devastates victims' families today. His story is a grave warning that true evil often wears a smiling face. The most dangerous predators can walk undetected among us, disguised in charming masks. The most twisted tend to wear metaphorical clown makeup. But Gacy's cruel legacy could not extinguish the light of the good. In the years after, friends and families of his victims banded together to support one another. This fellowship born of tragedy evolved into the formal group Friends and Family of John Wayne Gacy Victims. Based in Chicago, the association provides comfort and community to those whose loved ones fell prey to Gacy's unspeakable evil. Though the killer tried to dehumanize his victims as nameless playthings, this group keeps their memories alive and brings meaning from darkness. While evil may temporarily seem to hold sway, this is the true lesson of the twisted tale of John Wayne Gacy. That light pierces even the deepest shadows and life springs eternal where hate sought to destroy.